Hello and welcome to episode 4 of All Answers. The last one that we did on how India should be approaching the T20 World Cup in 2024 is amongst the most, is not amongst, is the most viewed of all the videos that I have done so far, or at least in this case, the most heard one. This, however, will not be continuation of that. That will be out in the tomorrow or the day after. In this episode, we'll be dealing with a separate question. It's regarding Shikhar Dhawan and it's regarding T20 World Cup, no, ODI World Cup 2023. So here is the question. It's from Yash Tirani and he asks, would you select Dhawan at the top? Or does Gill's comfort at playing spin and the home venues make a transition this late possible? Personally, I'd be in favor of continuing with him. So that's the question. I think by personally, I'd be in favor of continuing with him. Yash means that he'd like to continue with Shubman Gill as the opening partner to Rohit Sharma. It's the popular theory right now that everyone wants Shubman Gill or at least a new player younger player partnering Rohit Sharma on top and not Shikhar Dhawan. That's how the public sees it. So I'll be splitting this question into two parts. One, how I'll be approaching this situation, and how I expect the team management to approach this situation. The first part is that how what will I do? My philosophy in this is a lot similar to how Kumara Sangakkara saw it back in 2015. He was on a high. He was scoring a lot of runs, but immediately after the 2015 World Cup, he retired. So I think that he doesn't see himself as part of the 2019 World Cup squad. Now this decision, it had a lot of foresight. It's also something that you would expect a team player to do. For example, let's say the space between two World Cups, 2016, 2017 and 2018 are basically preparatory years for the next World Cup. If you're not going to play the 2019 World Cup, what's the point of you playing all the meaningless, it's under quotes, meaningless ODIs in 2016, 17 and 18, because that's the only World Cup, that's the only tournament that matters. That's the tournament that you're building towards to. That's the only trophy. That's the biggest trophy in world cricket, and that's what every team wants to win. So whatever you're doing in 2016, 17, and 18 is connected to the 2019 World Cup. That's what gives meaning to these what people you casually call as meaningless bilaterals. They wouldn't be meaningless if all of what you do are connected to the 2019 World Cup. Maybe you're developing a player. When you're developing a player, the bilaterals don't become meaningless. That the development of the player is what gives meaning. Or if you're trying a new strategy, it may be a micro strategy, one on the field, or it may be a macro strategy. Or you're trying something with the combination. You're trying an unorthodox combination. You're trying to fit someone's somewhere, or you're trying to change the batting order, or you're trying some funky moves. These all are the things that give more meaning, that give any meaning to the bilaterals that you're playing. What he says, of course, winning in overseas matters, but beyond all of this, this is what whatever you do, you should be keeping in mind that where the next World Cup is and what you'll be doing to win the World Cup. That's how all of your moves should be surrounding that. So that's what Kumara Sangakkara saw. He didn't see himself as part of the 2019 World Cup. So even though he was in great form, he retired. And I think this is what I would have done after the 2019 World Cup with Shikhar Dhawan. How old was Shikhar Dhawan is the first question. He was 33. How old will he be when the next World Cup comes? 37. Now that's a red alert, because you do not expect players start declining in the mid 30s. So you do not expect someone to be anywhere close to his best. At least it applies for most players not named Sachin Tendulkar or James Anderson. There may be a couple of exceptions, but this is what generally holds true. Players as they enter into their mid 30s and late 30s, they start declining. So you'll have to keep in mind. So this is a decision that should have been immediately taken after the 2019 World Cup by the management that was there at that point. They should have seen that by the next World Cup, Dhawan would be 37, and it could have even been applied to Rohit and Kohli were bigger players, so it was a slightly complicated decision to do, slightly complicated decision to make. But with Dhawan, he was the lesser all the three. So it could have been an easy discarding that they could have done. Also, these two players, Rohit and Kohli, were better, were bigger. So there is something that there's a lot of complexities that come into play. With Dhawan, however, this was a decision that should have been taken immediately after the 2019 World Cup. So they didn't take that. So what would you do now? The problem with changing, problem with doing big changes like this in the year building up to the World Cup, or in the couple of years building up to the World Cup, is that the new player that he comes in, you're not going to give him a fair run, because the number of matches are going to be limited, because with the T20 World Cups, the two T20 World Cups, and the number of T20 matches that are being played, you cannot give a player a fair chance. Also, you'll have to keep in mind that a player succeeding in first year doesn't necessarily mean a good thing for you, because if you've seen enough cricket, you know the second year is the most difficult one. This is something that also happens in a lot of IPL seasons. The player comes off, he goes all guns blazing in the first one, he looks like a wall beater, but come the second season, teams have come up with plans for him. Teams have analyzed him deeper with the kind of analytics these days, with the kind of video divings these days that people do, with the kind of stats that are available these days. It's easy to figure out a player. So when the season is completed, all these teams do will sit and dissect a player. You will know everything about him. Trust me, I've been through these numbers, I've been through these videos. You could watch an entire match in 30 35 to entire T20 match in 30 to 45 minutes, and there will be no ads, no, obviously there will be no ads, and you'll just start from the bowler running up a couple of steps. So all of these videos can be watched within 45 minutes, and there are stats, there are advanced stats that are available that will amaze you. So it will be easier to figure out a player right now. So when this happens, you might think the player might be having a good 2022, so he's fixing my position for 2023, but the reality is he might be getting figured out in 2023. So you do not want to go to a World Cup with a player with a player in such situation. This is why changing a setup, doing something massive to a setup year before a big tournament is not advisable. These are the challenges that Indian team is facing. These are the challenges I would be facing if I have to make a decision. So what would I do in this case? I think the benefit that we have is that the kind of options we have. For example, Gill, if you take Gill, he has been around for 4 to 5 years in the IPL cricket, and these are going to be familiar conditions. This is not going to be a World Cup that's going to be played in completely different conditions, like it happened with the Australian World Cup, for example. For the some of the options that people said hadn't even been to Australia. So how did you play with them? For example, Gill has played a lot of his cricket in India, so that makes it easy. There is not going to be a lot that's going to happen in the next year, because a lot of his problems have already been figured out. His weakness is outside. His weakness is on the offside. His limited acceleration ability against pace on the offside. So all of this he's been working on. So he's at a place where there's not going to be anything drastic that's going to happen next year. So that works in favor of him. And also, if you consider the other options, Iyer, Shreyas Iyer, he broke through in 2017. He was figured out in 2018 and 19. He's again back. He's at a certain place right now. And Surya Kumar Yadav, there's not that needs to be said much about him right now. He's one of the world's biggest players. The entire world is amazed at what he has been doing, how outrageous it is, how unbelievable it is. So I think even though Sky wasn't in the ODI scheme of things, I think now after what he has done in the T20 World Cup, he'll be coming back into the 11. And this spells doom for, unfortunately, for Shreyas Iyer, I think, because Pant will hold on to his place because he has had a good record in the last 10 to 15 ODIs, and he's a left-hander, and ODI is also where he finds himself more at home at. So this is a problem that Iyer will be facing. But you also consider the other players in the mix. There is KL Rahul, so there is Shikhar Dhawan. So what this makes is it will be, what all of this does is that it will be a surprise to me if Shikhar Dhawan holds on to his spot based on his performances in the last few months. I think I personally like, from I'll finish off my part first. So based on all of this, based on how Iyer has done, I think Iyer, we discussed this in one of the previous episodes. I think I love what Iyer brings to a ODI World Cup that's going to be held in subcontinental conditions. And there's no doubt about Sky's potential. And Gill also, those who know me, those who follow me closely know how big of a fan I am of Shubman Gill, and how much I rate his potential. So I drop Shikhar Dhawan. Yes, I've seen enough of Gill. I've seen enough of I've seen enough of Sky to drop a big player at this point and bring them in. I think that's also what the team is building up to. Even though they've given the captaincy band and everything, there's a lot that's been talked about how he's been made captain, how this shows that he's undroppable. But I don't think so. I think captaincy is basically the team saying that we do not want the youngsters to take the role. You're a senior and you're playing. Unlike Rohit and Kohli, are resting. So who are resting, so you take the captaincy band. But there will come a point when all of your performances will be evaluated, not just of Dhawan, of Iyer, of Gill, of Pan. And at that point, if you do not have the numbers, you'll be dropped. This captaincy, I think it's the team management giving him a run, giving him space to show that he's worth the spot. But he has, so far in the last 1 year, the numbers have not been there. There was a couple of series still like 2020, 2021, where he was good enough, maybe even in the England series or even in the overseas. But the numbers have started to decline. When you are going to compare it with the likes of Gill, Iyer, or even Sky, although his ODI numbers are not there, but you know his potential. Come the March or even after the IPL, if the numbers don't compete with them, or even be better than them, I don't think Dhawan will have a case. I think the same thing that happened to Pant. This is something I talked about in a number of articles that I wrote ahead of Asia Cup and the World Cup. That there will come a time when Pant's numbers will be evaluated, and at that point, his numbers should be good enough to get picked. If they're not, he'll be getting dropped from the T20 setup, and that's exactly what happened because Pant was dropped because his numbers were not good enough. I think that's something that's going to happen to the one. I mean, look, keep away all these captaincy bans and everything. I think people are looking too seriously into it. For me, I think it's a senior player. The younger ones, there's no point burdening them with captaincy, and it's just that's the only reason I see Shikhar Dhawan captaining. It's not like the team saying him that he's a future, his spot is guaranteed, and that is why we are giving you the captaincy to prove that we believe in you. I think there'll come a time, and if Shikhar Dhawan doesn't do anything extraordinary in the next 3 to 4 months, he's going to get dropped. So yeah, I'll drop I'll drop him. I expect the team management to drop him if nothing extraordinary happens in the next 3 to 4 months. There will come a time, the what you will call it, the D time or something else. Yeah. So this is what I think. Thank you. I hope you got your answer, and I hope all of this. There's a logical way to do all of this. It's not like some kind of madness or it's just this random thing. There is a way that you can do all of the selection, analytics, and everything in a meaningful way. So, yeah, thank you. Bye. Let's meet in the next episode of Al Answers.